Today's video is brought to you by Niva. The Fuji X100V is the perfect travel photographer's camera, and so it was the natural pick for me for my recent trip to Istanbul. But even with the perfect travel photography camera, many newer photographers still come back from trips with a lot of photos that are more of just snapshots than anything else. In today's video, I want to use my trip to Istanbul with the X100V to help you take photos more meaningful than simple snapshots. But first, I need to tell you why I went to Istanbul and a bit about this video's sponsor. As a middle-aged dude like many of you, I've been alarmed at the rate at which my hair seems to be migrating away from where it should be. So when Niva reached out and offered to provide me hair transplant procedure, I was duly intrigued. I will admit that I was skeptical both about the potential success of a transplant surgery and also the fact that Niva is headquartered in Istanbul, a city which I knew very little about. But after some research, I learned that not only have hair transplant procedures come a long way in appearing perfectly natural, but also that apparently Istanbul is the place to have it done. If you know, you know. So I roped my brother into coming with me and we made a trip out of it, which in spite of undergoing surgery was totally wonderful. Niva is headquartered in the same building as a beautiful Marriott hotel they put us up in. The staff was wonderfully kind, knowledgeable, skilled, and the perfect hosts, not only making the whole process as comfortable as possible, but also showing us the city and taking us out for some great food and experiences. If you'd like to learn more, you can reach out to Niva directly using the link below, or click on the link to the video above where I explain the whole process from beginning to end and help you see what it's like to undergo hair transplant surgery at Niva. And stay tuned, as in 6 months from now I'll be able to show you the before and after when these luscious locks begin to take form. I was only in Istanbul for 5 days, and even though I was there for a not very fun procedure, I thoroughly enjoyed the city. The people were kind and welcoming, and it felt much safer than some US cities that I'm used to visiting and doing street photography in. When it comes to photographing experiences like this, for me, there are some principles I try to follow to come away with more meaningful photos. The first is that it doesn't really matter which camera you take. A huge DSLR is fine, a small mobile device is also fine, but I prefer the X100V because it looks like a classic film camera. It's less likely to make you a target. It has amazing performance in situations where you need to react quickly to capture those decisive moments, and I just love shooting with it. It's beautiful and fun to use, and the simplicity of having only one focal length to worry about brings sharp focus to your awareness. You can zero in on only that which is right in front of you and lends itself to that 23mm APS-C field of view. So other than having the right camera, here are a few other things I want to share with you in context of my trip to help you take better travel photography, like I said. And the first point is that you don't have to photograph every step of the journey. Some people want to take selfies or group shots in front of every single interesting thing they see, but these photos suck. Nobody likes to look at them. They don't tell any sort of story, and it's lazy photography. I'm not saying don't photograph the landmarks. Sense of place can be very important in sharing the full story of an adventure or tying a moment to a memory. And I'm not saying don't take photos of folks in your group, but don't beat people over the head with the obvious shots. Think of it this way: you're not trying to create a logbook. What you're trying to create is a poem. Great poets are not literal, and they don't have a lot of words to work with. They seek to capture the essence of their message in only a few carefully crafted, rhythmic, and pleasing phrases. A good poem doesn't beat us over the head with its message. Rarely are the words literal, and most of the time they say a lot more with fewer words. Treat your photography the same way. Use a small number of photos to capture the emotion of your journey. Take photos that matter, that are interesting, for more reasons than just to log that a certain person was in a certain place. For instance, instead of taking pictures of every landmark and every view, try to capture moments of other people enjoying these sites. Think about it from a street photographer's standpoint. Look for a way to tell the story in more than just the literal way. For instance, photograph the trappings and the details of the journey. Use negative space to create isolation. Look for and anticipate emotional moments. If you're being more selective, you will anticipate moments rather than taking the obvious shots. If you're so caught up in catching everything, you'll end up with a lot of mediocre shots. But if you can have a sharp awareness for and anticipate the magic moments, the few photos that you do come away with will mean much, much more. That doesn't necessarily mean taking fewer photos, but maybe it does mean being more selective about what we point our cameras at in the first place, and it certainly means being more selective about what photos we decide are keepers. To be a better photographer, you've got to become a better editor. A documentary photographer takes hundreds of photos on location, but usually only very few are printed. Your audience just doesn't have time, patience, or interest in reviewing your whole logbook of photos. But if you can capture small slices of real meaningful stories that can sum up or convey what your adventure or memory really meant at the time, that will mean way more to an observer and your future self as well than just about anything else that you could do. Also, don't forget to photograph when you're being driven around. Some of my favorite photos from my Istanbul trip came from when we were being driven around the city. Being on the road can bring a completely different perspective to the soul of a city, one that most street photographers and travel photographers just don't think to capture. Besides that, it's just fun. But that's all for now. I really hope you enjoyed coming along with me and my trip to Istanbul and that you gained some value from this video. Be sure to check out my other video about my hair transplant experience if that's something you're considering for yourself. And in the meantime, remember to do good with your camera, and we'll talk to you again real soon.